interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Neat. Hey guys, Zack Mars here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So, today's episodes we're going to be reviewing our Brightest Swamp Monster and Goat Paint, so let's get into both of those. Okay, so this episode, Brightest Swamp Monster, is actually kind of interesting in that, there's a swamp monster, and he just wants his girlfriend back, long story short. That's the story of this one. But in any case, it starts off with, uses Muriel and Courage in an antique shop, which is revealed to be run by Floyd, who apparently that's his job. Apparently, he was obviously elected mayor a while ago, and I'm not entirely sure if that's actually a thing, because obviously this series is on a flowing timeline. What may be canon one episode might not be canon the next. But in any case, it's revealed that Floyd actually works in an antique shop, and Muriel is actually eyeing a locket and actually wants it for herself, since she can put all of her favorite photos in there, and the first photo she puts in is a photo of herself and Courage, which Eustace claims makes it junk, but then she puts a photo of Eustace in it, which he claims makes it look less junk. So Eustace winds up deciding to buy it for her for half price, obviously, since he feels like it's only half the price, because it's, in his own words, half junk. And Floyd isn't particularly angry at the fact that Eustace only paid half price for it, mainly because he believes that Muriel should have something nice, and he decides to do it for the lady, as he puts it. So, and with that, Muriel and Courage actually wind up getting back into Eustace's truck and start driving home. With Eustace remarking that there's a lot of fog and that it's thicker than Courage's breath, with Courage sniffing his own breath to confirm that Eustace is right. Apparently Courage has bad breath and never actually realized it, but he takes a deep whiff of it, and he winds up having a very interesting reaction to it. In any case, Muriel is just admiring her new locket, and Eustace asks if he can see it, but he winds up dropping it on the dashboard and tries to pick it up for her, which causes him to not be looking at the road. And this is one of the several times where he actually hasn't been looking at the road and then causes a car crash. But in any case, because of that, he actually winds up veering off of the road and into a swamp. And his car gets stuck, and Muriel's locket actually falls out of the truck and into the swamp below, which winds up in the hands of the titular swamp monster, who picks it up, sees it, and mistakes Muriel for his girlfriend. And decides that he's going to take her back. At which point, Eustace and Muriel and Courage are actually trying to get Eustace's truck unstuck out of the mud. Muriel and Courage are actually both pushing, while Eustace is trying to use the actual engine, the actual moving parts of the truck, to actually try and back up while they're trying to push. Muriel is just a little bit annoyed with Eustace, since A, it's entirely his fault that her locket sank to the bottom of the swamp, and B, he's not really helping. So Eustace eventually just gets out, and after looking at them push for a bit, he actually comes up with an idea on how to actually get his truck out of the mud. And what he does is he uses his Ooga Booga Bass to actually scare Courage, which works, because Courage just winds up getting a surge of adrenaline and gains super strength. So he just pushes the truck out of the mud, which works, and Eustace does kind of laugh at him a little bit, since he just kind of tormented Courage. But Muriel then beats him over the head with her frying pan, with her rolling pin, which she apparently took with her as well. And they proceed to get back into Eustace's truck and drive off, with Muriel still lamenting on the fact that she lost her locket, whereas Eustace doesn't really care either way, because he still has his truck. But once they actually emerge from the swamp and actually get out, the swamp monster actually comes out onto dry land, and and once again declares that he's going to find Swamp Woman and make him his bride. So yeah. Long story short, he's going to goes to go find his girlfriend, and the first thing he does is he goes to Floyd's antique shop and asks him if he's seen Muriel, since obviously he sold the locket, he would know where it came from. But Floyd doesn't fully understand what the swamp monster is trying to ask him, mainly because the locket is actually covered in gunk, and you can't actually see the picture all too clearly, which annoys the swamp monster, and he decides to destroy Floyd's shop by roaring in his face and just causing the whole thing to collapse around him. And this is just a recurring thing. He actually winds up going on a rampage throughout the city of nowhere, throughout town, and it winds up getting the attention, and it winds up getting on the attention of the local news, who proceed to do a report, and the Nowhere Newsman then proceeds to do a report on it, while Courage, Eustace, and Muriel are actually sitting down watching TV. They haven't cleaned up yet because they're still covered in mud gunk from the swamp, so they haven't really gotten an opportunity to clean up yet. But in any case, they're not entirely sure what's going on. And Eustace even remarks that he's not going to get his girlfriend back because of how ugly he is. But in any case, throughout the expositional piece, it's revealed that he's just trying to find Swamp Woman, and the Nowhere Newsman tries to interview him at one point, but merely gets roared at, and he winds up going flying. And also Floyd showed up and points out that he is one angry swamp man. Which Muriel then recognizes because he was the guy who sold her the locket, and then also they note that their farmhouse is actually appearing on TV, which understandably freaks Courage out, and he realizes he needs to actually keep the swamp monster out of the house, so he installs a bunch of locks on the front door. And Eustace takes this opportunity to kick Courage out so that he can keep watch, and also locks all the locks behind him. So Courage doesn't really do that job. He actually winds up falling asleep, and the swamp monster actually takes the opportunity to actually charge through the front door. The locks didn't do jack shit. So he just kind of charges into the house and goes up to the top floor to actually go find Eustace and Muriel, and actually find Muriel and bring her back home, as he puts it. And Courage actually wakes up and actually freaks out a little bit, which also is revealed to be a cardboard cutout for reasons. So at which point Courage shows up with a hot dog and a drink, and then realizing that the swamp monster is breaking into the house, he then proceeds to chase after the swamp monster into the house. But the swamp monster doesn't really know that he's there, and actually winds up throwing the bedroom door at him, which he winds up getting stuck in and falls to the bottom floor. And then he barges into the bag's bedroom and freaks him out, and Eustace demands to know who he is, but the swamp monster just responds by picking him up and shoving him head first through the ceiling. And then Muriel actually picks up Muriel and tells her that he's come to actually bring her home and make him his wife, and in the process he actually brings her out of the house and actually drops the locket, with Courage realizing where the misunderstanding actually came from, and realizing he needs to actually find the swamp man's real girlfriend. He actually goes to the computer to go through a database to see if they can actually find him, and they actually do wind up finding his girlfriend. Her name is Catherine, actually. And the computer actually reveals that she lives in I think it's some sort of German or Swedish town with a weird name. I don't remember the name, and it's very hard to remember because it's obviously a very goofy name. The name is deliberately very goofy and hard to understand. But Courage winds up going to the little town while with the locket in hand and a letter, and while Courage actually winds up Muriel actually winds up being prepared to be married by the swamp monster. So Courage eventually does manage to track down Catherine and tells her what's up. And it's revealed that the reason she hasn't come back home is because she is very forgetful. I'm not kidding. Like, as Courage is trying to explain it to her, and he gets increasingly exasperated with her, she reveals that she's actually forgets things a lot of the time, and often forgets what they're talking about. Case in point, Courage has to re-explain things to her several times. But she does explain that that the swamp man was always a little impatient with her, which is why they kind of broke up in the first place. But But when Courage reveals that he's actually going to be marrying Muriel, she becomes upset, pointing out that she's repulsive, and then decides that she's not going to let that happen. But then she forgets, and Courage has to re-explain the entire situation with her. But in any case, the two of them, despite that, actually wind up showing up right as the swamp monster is about to put a wedding ring on Muriel's finger, and has also dressed her up in a wedding gown. And it's revealed that the swamp monster's name is Everett, and the two actually reconcile while Courage actually escapes with Muriel, and gets her to safety, and also he stops to actually watch them reconcile a little bit. But in any case, it's revealed that after that, because Everett actually wound up waiting several thousands of years for Swamp Monster to return, she realized that he's actually gotten a bit more patient with her, and Swamp Monster admits that he may now sympathize with her a little bit more, because he realizes he had forgotten what she looks like. Then that's why he wound up kidnapping Muriel. He forgot what his girlfriend looked like, so he imprints it on the first person who actually looked somewhat like her. And also Swamp Monster does reveal, and also Everett does reveal that he actually sent Catherine several letters asking her to come home and why she never returned any of them. But she really remarks that she forgot where she lives, which infuriates Swamp Man, and Everett winds up getting very upset with her over that. And at which point Courage decides to take his leave and actually returns Muriel to the surface of the swamp, which causes her to spit up water because she's been underwater this whole time. But Courage then proceeds to present her with her locket, with her remarking that she had a strangest dream. But upon seeing her locket, she calls Courage a good dog, and they decide to actually head home with the swamp monster and his new wife to be kind of complaining as they leave. So yeah, this episode is just very interesting. First and foremost, this episode is just about a swamp man who lives in nowhere apparently, and he wasn't particularly happy about his girlfriend. But what's very interesting is that I'm not entirely sure where to put this, but this is just a fun little episode where Courage actually winds up playing couples counseling for a group of swamp monsters, and they wind up getting back together and reconciling. And also, the reason the swamp monster is an antagonist in the episode is because, ironically, something he had gotten upset with his girlfriend over is that he actually wound up forgetting what his girlfriend looked like and just took the first person that reminded him of her. So, which in this case wound up being Muriel. So that's why Muriel was kidnapped in the first place. But yeah, this episode's just kind of interesting and a little bit fun and a fun little story. But in any case, that's my review of that episode. On to the next one. Okay, so this episode, Goat Pain, is actually pretty straightforward in its premise as well. So the episode opens up with Muriel being in bed, and she's in a lot of pain. She can barely move, and Eustace actually walks in, demanding to know when she's going to make breakfast and get out of bed. But she remarks that she can't even move. With Eustace merely remarking that's too bad, which Muriel misinterprets, thinking that he's trying to be sweet, but in actuality he just wants to be fed. So what he decides to do is they actually decide to put her on a cart and actually bring her to Dr. Vindaloo to see if he can fix her pain. And Dr. Vindaloo can't, and for obvious reasons, because he's Dr. Vindaloo. But he does try to see the extent of her pain by pounding her with a hammer, putting a wind-up duck toy on her back, and having her walk across, and also putting one of those fancy lamps where you clap and it turns on. One of those. He does all of that to her, but she winds up, but she's still in very much a lot of pain, and Dr. Vindaloo concludes that he can't actually fix this much pain, which upsets Courage and Eustace, mostly Eustace, since obviously Eustace is pointing out that it's almost lunchtime and he needs to be fed. So Dr. Vindaloo, realizing everybody is upset and realizing that they need a solution immediately, gives them a map to the top of Mount Nowhere, which is revealed. Yeah, it's revealed that Nowhere actually has his own mountain range, and Mount Nowhere actually has a sacred hot spring at the top that they can actually use to restore Muriel's back and actually stop her pain. So Courage immediately jumps at the opportunity and takes both Eustace and Muriel to the top of Mount Nowhere. But once he's gone, Dr. Vindaloo realizes he never told them that nobody ever comes back from Mount Nowhere. But does point out that it'll probably be fine. So at which point Courage just then showed up with one of those old pull carts, and he has Muriel and Eustace in the back of it with Eustace asking Courage if they're there yet. So, and eventually they do wind up at the top of Mount Nowhere and actually manage to bring them to the top of Mount Nowhere, where they're encountered by a goat. So this goat is very upset with them and actually tells them to go back. With Eustace, Muriel, and Courage not fully understanding, Courage just proceeds to place Muriel back on the cliffside so that she can actually rest, whereas Eustace tries to figure out why the goat is actually demanding that they leave, because he doesn't want to take orders from no damn goat. So he's very much upset with the goat for trying to boss him around, but the goat merely reiterates his previous point, pointing out that the land is sacred and that they're not allowed to be there and that they need to leave. And once again, Eustace reiterates his point that he's not going to be told what to do by no goat. So the goat winds up ramming him with his horns and sending him flying into a nearby mountain, where he winds up being picked by a mountain ape that picks him up and takes him for a husband. So yeah, Eustace winds up being abducted by a mountain ape. So that's just a thing. But in any case, after seeing what happened to Eustace, Muriel and Courage then proceed to try and plead with the goat, with Muriel pointing out that she's in a lot of pain and she would like to bathe in the hot spring to actually restore her back. So the goat actually decides to kind of sort of follow them up on that offer, and proceeds to ram into Muriel and send her flying, which winds up hurting the goat's neck. Well, he rams and then proceeds to tell Courage that he can see where the spring is well, and proceeds to ram him and send him flying as well, which again hurts the goat's neck. At which point they wind up landing in a large pit. And the goat then proceeds to reveal that where they are is indeed the hot spring, or at least it used to be. It's now completely full of garbage, and the goat then proceeds to explain his backstory to them, pointing out why the hot spring is no longer flowing. As it turns out, it used to be a hot spring for goats, and it was kind of like a glorified spa for them. And they initially went there to rejuvenate, gossip, and a whole bunch of other things. But then a bunch of explorers showed up, discovered the hot spring, and turned it into basically, the long story short, the guy turned it into a resort, which caused humans to fill it with garbage, and it eventually caused the spring to clog up and dry up, and eventually all the goats were driven off until the goat that we see in the episode was the last one. At which point he started chasing off any intruders that would come there. And his horns eventually grew so massive that his head could barely hold him up. So yeah, long story short, the goat is just trying to keep his old home safe from any intruders, because as implied by his backstory, people suck. Long story short, the reason there's no hot spring anymore is because people suck. They took something beautiful and perverted it. They ruined it. They took something natural and beautiful and destroyed it with their own greed. So, but Muriel then proceeds to actually point out that she would still like to actually be fixed, and wonders if the goat would actually share pain, pointing out that they're both in a lot of pain, and obviously they don't want to be in a lot of pain anymore, and wonders if they can help. But the goat merely remarks that she knows nothing about his pain, and then proceeds to throw a rock on top of her and later Courage, when he tries to help her. The long story short, he drops a rock on their head, pointing out that now they will share his pain. And with that, he laughs maniacally and leaves. And Muriel merely remarks that they need to get out from under the rocks, pointing out that if they're not careful, they'll eventually be flattened into pancakes. But so Courage actually tries to use a bit of cartoon fixes to actually save himself. He eventually tries to pop the top of his head up like a tire jack, but that winds up not working. So what he does instead is he actually pulls out his skeleton to free himself, and then pulls his skin out from under the rock, and then proceeds to put it back on like a suit. At which point he then proceeds to push the rock off of Muriel's head and uses her rolling pin to actually give her a massage, so that she actually is not her pain isn't completely gone, but it's enough that she can actually at the very least walk. And she's happy with that Courage is able to give such good massages, and wonders if he can actually give a massage to the goat to actually maybe fix his pain, so he stops trying to kill them. But then the goat tries to drop another rock on their head, which Courage successfully dodges with Muriel being carried above him. And the goat is merely just annoyed at Courage for evading his rock, and then calls him a bad dog and that he needs to be punished, and continues to throw several rocks at him, and eventually gets to the point where Courage is able to hide between the very thin gap between two rocks, and a third rock lands on top and keeps him completely safe. At which point Courage tries to poke his head out and notes that the goat seems to be gone, and which Courage proceeds to celebrate until he discovers that the goat has actually appeared in the pit and is trying to attack him, and proceeds to headbutt him up out of the pit, and sends him flying into a wall, and then proceeds to climb up out of the pit after him, and proceeds to ram Courage repeatedly until the goat is in so much pain that he can barely move. At which point Courage, very badly injured, manages to crawl away from the goat and winds up falling into the pit by accident. And in the process, he winds up unclogging the spring and actually letting it free. Courage actually winds up catching his hand on a bottle so that and winds up pulling the bottle out of the crack it's stuck in, which is revealed to be the reason why the spring got clogged in the first place. The spring was unable to flow because there was a bottle clogging it up. So with that, the hot spring then returns back to normal, and Muriel's back pain is completely cured as a result of that. And then she notes that the goat is in a lot of pain as well, and tells Courage that he seems to need the full spot treatment. So what Courage does is he picks the goat up and throws him into the hot spring. Which does wind up slowly curing his neck pain, and the goat is just happy that the spring is back, and also to make sure that he doesn't actually wind up hurting his neck anymore. Courage then proceeds to file down his antlers until they're a reasonable size and are actually manageable. And Muriel merely responds that he looks like $1 million, but she doesn't really understand what the terminology would be for goats, so she tries to come up with something. But the goat is just merely happy that the hot spring is back, and now he can finally relax again and actually use the rejuvenating powers of the hot spring. While Courage actually winds up grabbing a recycling bin and winds up cleaning up all the trash that's still floating around in the hot spring. Meanwhile, the mountain ape shows up with Eustace tucked under her arm, and asks if the hot spring can cure broken hearts, and Muriel responds that now they have more customers and feels like that the spring is actually that things are starting to look up. And then Courage winds up curling his ears into horns and does his best impression of a goat to end the episode off, which is kind of cute. So yeah, this episode is just about humans suck. Long story short, that's what the episode is. Humans ruined a perfectly good hot spring in the wilderness, and that is why the goat was an antagonist. He saw humans destroy his hot spring. He didn't want that happening anywhere else, and eventually a human actually came along, or rather a dog, I guess in this case, and fixed the hot spring and actually volunteered to clean it up. So yeah, long story short, this is a very Loraxy theme to it, that you need to actually keep your natural resources clean and actually keep the environment clean. Otherwise, problems are going to happen, and you're going to have an angry goat that's going to ram you into things. Which the allegory kind of falls apart in that context. But the idea is just keep your shit clean. Don't throw trash and be disrespectful. Just keep everything clean and keep nature clean and don't cause problems. But in any case, that is my review of both of those episodes. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well if you do want to help support the show. It is only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and obviously I want to do more projects like this. So if you want to see those, by all means, again, link is down in the description. Just be sure to go check those out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top one's the most recent one, whereas the bottom video is recommended to you based on what you've already seen. And because it's the Courage month, both of those may or may not be Courage related. And also, once again, go follow me on Discord. Go check out my Discord because we are actually going to be doing the grand finale of Courage Month over there. We're going to be doing a watch along over there in that. And also I should bring up where I may or may not review it afterward because I don't think you can archive VODs from that. So maybe. I'm probably going to wind up doing that, so just keep an eye on that. But in any case, just go check that out. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Else next time I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.